Welcome to EVONA Origin Stories, the space podcast where we bring you extraordinary leaders from within the sector as we explore their fascinating stories of early life, career, and how they broke into the space industry. Today on the podcast, we're sitting down with self-professed accidental space cadet Heather Lesser. Heather's early career started out in healthcare, but she navigated her business and management skills through retail, non-profit, and even marketing until she landed herself a role as executive assistant to the CEO of Eta Space. This is where she fell in love with the world of space and worked her way up to her current position as Chief Administrative Officer. Despite her unplanned journey into the industry, Heather has found her calling in space and cherishes her place in the industry today. Parallel to her role at Eta Space, she's also utilising her refined HR and admin skills for Laura Forczyk, a space consultant and careers coach. A passionate people person at her core, Heather is a perfect example of the diverse skill sets that are needed in the space industry. Today, we're diving into her journey from accidental space cadet to an integral player in the industry, as well as her passion for people-centric management and the ways that we can help others to chart their own course through the infinite expanse of space careers. Hello.
Hi,
Hi, Heather. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Wonderful. Glad to hear. Yeah, me too. Thank you. It's boiling here for once in our lives. So I'm basking, and you can't tell because of my spacey background, but I'm currently sat near a very sunny window absorbing the vitamin D, which is lovely. How is it on your end?
Yeah, well, it's Florida, so it's always nice and toasty here,
Mm.
which I love, which I prefer. So that works out.
Yeah, that do you know, Florida is the only place I've been to in America, but I was a bit young. I don't, all I remember is so hot. It being
Mm.
so hot, alligators going on a little swamp. I went on one of those boats around a swamp and the Harry Potter ride at Universal Studios. I will never forget that ride. Have you been?
Yeah, I'm a pass holder to Universal and
Mm.
to Disney as well. That's just kind of, Florida life as well. But yeah,
Oh, well, next, if I'm ever back, I'll let you know and we can fast track and we can have a couple goes on there.
yeah, let's do it.
That sounds like a plan. I'm really excited to be kind of speaking with you about this today. I've seen on your LinkedIn, I know about kind of what you do, and I know you call yourself an accidental space cadet, which
Hmm.
me too.
Okay,
And I
great.
love kind of, yeah, it's great. I love kind of talking to people that have that similar story because it's really kind of the essence of the podcast is to kind of, demystify space and show people how accessible it is and also to kind of shine a light onto this. There's so many different routes into the industry that, don't necessarily require a science, technology, engineering, or maths degree, but you can use your
Mhm.
skills to contribute to that industry without necessarily having to have such a technical knowledge, which maybe you do have. I guess we'll find out as the conversation goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely came in with a very unorthodox approach. So that's for sure.
Me too. Well, I'm excited to hear about that. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. It's a good place to kind of hear where it all started, and then eventually we'll kind of hear your inspirations and what you've learned and everything. So yeah, let's start at the beginning. So talk us through kind of where you grew up, school, college, and I guess kind of how you found your way into your early career.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up on the other coast. I'm currently on the coast in Florida, but I grew up on the Tampa side and I went to nursing school. I was wanting to use nursing as a way to actually do some missions work. And so I got my nursing degree and went overseas for a couple years to do missions work, ended up not being able to use my nursing degree where I went to do missions work. But that was just a 2 year set time for that job, for that position. And then when I came back stateside, we were still reeling a little bit from the economic downturn in 2008. I came back in 2010, but I actually could not find a nursing job, which I know sounds crazy. Everyone says you'll never be without a job, but lies. So I couldn't find a nursing job, and I just took a part-time just above minimum wage position at retail, a seasonal position because I needed to do something. And so I did that and ended up enjoying it quite a bit, got recruited out of there with another retail company, had some experience in management there. And then from there, learned about a nonprofit who was looking for someone to do some development, donor recruitment, and relations work. And I really loved the mission of the organization and knew that I could do the work, and was a bit eager to get out of retail at that point in time. I kind of had my fill of retail, and yeah, so I made that pivot then, and then went into marketing and communications and donor relations and that whole world. So that was quite the shift. And then in the midst of the pandemic, found myself unemployed and decided that I wanted to move back because I was in Oklahoma at this time. I've been wanting to move back to Florida for quite a while. And so I just put my house on the market. I was like, well, there's nothing holding me in Oklahoma anymore, and moved in the middle of the pandemic. And I was unemployed, and that was difficult as well, finding any position. So obviously at that point, I was looking for just about anything that would align with my skill sets. And yeah, someone introduced me to the CEO of Eta Space, and I met with him, and the work itself was fascinating. I was like, this is so cool. This will easily be the coolest thing that I have ever been involved in. But also I knew that I could do the job. So the role initially was an executive assistant role. To assist the CEO in building the company. It's a startup, so there's just a lot to be done with startups and in that phase. And I knew everything that he said, even though I hadn't been specifically an EA. I knew that I could do it, and told him that. And he took me at my word and took a chance on me. And sure enough, it worked out, well for the both of us. But yeah, so that was kind of my first touch. That's why I call myself the accidental space cadet. And ever since, I've just been hooked, and I've just been learning all that I can, trying to figure out who the players are in the industry, what's going on, what the latest updates are. It's just fascinating. And also I enjoy the flex of saying, I can no longer say it's not rocket science, because it is, so yeah. I really enjoy just everything that I get to learn, and really just the challenge of all of that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, completely. I completely kind of can resonate with your story there. Like you said, just that was completely me, coming straight out of university, just taking a job because I needed money to live and pay my rent and everything and to eat. And, it's just you kind of pick up skills along the way. And I think that's the kind of beauty of kind of leaving yourself open to whatever the universe is going to throw at you, and just, taking it as it goes, and then just saying yes to opportunities. And, from, you got all these different experiences after your nursing degree and everything. And, to eventually find yourself in space, I completely, the same. The phrase rocket science, when I speak about my job, obviously I'm no rocket scientist, but that's the incredible thing, is I now have some understanding of these things that I never thought I would have. And it's the feeling of being so proud to work in an industry, and also that being amplified by it almost being a bit of a surprise to yourself, I think, that you ended up there. So now that you're kind of embedded into the industry, obviously there's a lot of things you could say here. What is it that you love the most about space and working in the industry?
Yeah, gosh, yeah, so many things. I love the challenge, of course. Everything is challenging, but also the variety, specifically with my role in being in a startup. Again, wearing different hats, but I never, there's always something new to learn, which is great, and getting those varied experiences as well. The more different things that I have to do, the more that I learn. But space specifically, I mean, we have very just now like begun to hit the tip of the iceberg of the vast array of everything that exists in space and the benefits to us. And we've already, gotten so many benefits from space. So just the concept that there's just untapped resources, untapped experiences, untapped adventure. I really that sense of wonder and of discovery, I think that that's what makes us human, right? Like that's one of the things that separates us. um and yeah, like that, to have that thought of we can go farther, we can do more, we can explore more, we can discover more, and we are only limited by ourselves and what we have to work with at any point in time. And if we can figure it out, then we can continue to go and continue to learn and grow, and just discover more things. And we'll never fully know, all that there is to know about our universe. And so, yeah, so just let's keep finding out what we can and how to better utilize what we have, that are now, we know we have access to these resources. So how can we now better utilize those to, benefit us here and now?
You're completely right there. I completely agree with you that, it's the shared sense of kind of wonder and magic that the space industry kind of holds, and, kind of setting the boundaries of what's possible. And I really like you're saying that we're only limited by ourselves, because that makes me think, when we're talking about the expansion of the space industry and all these different like collective skills that we need, and these diverse skill sets that, do really go, they obviously STEM is so important, but they do kind of go beyond that. And as
Mhm.
as two people that are saying that we accidentally got into the industry, I can't help but, it makes me wonder how different could it be if we'd have maybe, when we were kind of younger and at school, had a different exposure to kind of STEM industries and, the space industry and the different paths available into it. Because really, one of the main the reason we really started the podcast is to make space accessible for everyone and to communicate the accessibility of space, which it's completely changing now. Obviously, people are taking different attitudes to STEM, but historically, that's not really, it has kind of been lacking there. And the whole essence of, promoting STEM outreach and, inspiring children is to make sure that the sector has the skills and the talent it needs to, as we're saying, continue to explore and discover the untapped miracles that are just happening up there, that are just within our reach. So
Mhm.
so kind of on, exactly. So kind of on the topic of this, what do you think when we're speaking about, trying to impact change at younger levels with kind of STEM initiatives? What do you think we need to be doing differently to, to ensure that we're inspiring children and young people and the next generation that are going to fuel the sector in so many ways?
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely a lot of work to be done. I think that we need to remove a lot of our gender emphasis and biases that we have, and also kind of evaluate where those came from, right? So, because again, as a people, we're constantly advancing and progressing, and things don't look the same today as it does 50 years ago. So maybe in the past, we focused a little bit more on encouraging women, for example, to pursue home life, and success for women looked like staying, taking care of the home and the children and whatnot. And well, what do we know today? They can do all of those things and also still have a career and pursue a career. And that doesn't take away from them. So I think we really need to look at the messaging. How are we speaking to kids? Are we saying, to the little boys, you can be anything you want to be, and then turning around to the little girls and saying, how many kids do you want to have when you grow up? And so, and again,
Hmm.
that's nothing to knock motherhood or say that not to do those things, but the focus is, should be more along the lines of you can also do anything. Motherhood is just one part of that. So and women are amazing and they can do all of the things, and have. So that for sure. Yeah, and I think just making access to those resources. So I feel like we skipped a generation or two potentially with the space craze, if you will. There was, and I think we're seeing this now in the industry and how this plays out. Because you talk about, you look at statistics of how many boomers, are getting ready to exit the industry, and how that's going to have a huge impact on the industry, because there's just not enough Gen X to replace them in key positions within the industry. So I think, back in that boomer generation, when they were children, there was still a lot of like, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. Well, then, I think that kind of, hit its peak at that moment. And then maybe Gen X, millennials, not so much. And I think we need to get back into that mindset. And I'm hoping that with especially the commercialization of space right now is really bringing a lot more exposure to the industry. Unfortunately, some in negative ways, but I think there's just a lack of understanding there. But yeah, and so I really hope that the next generations are picking up on that and dreaming again about space. They want to be astronauts again, or again, not necessarily astronauts, but be involved in some way within the space industry. So I hope that also, again, that messaging, when we're targeting children with these messages, to one, not limit them by gender or anything, offer the same opportunities and same messaging to all children, but then also let them know, this is something that is going to revolutionize your generation and the generations to come, and you can be a part of it. So this is an option for you. Astronauts are not something of the past and shuttle days that retired with that and that program, but no, this is an up and coming thing, and you're going to want to be a part of it.
Definitely. I think that's such a key point there, is especially with kind of like the next generation, is there's a lot of pushback about why space. And I think there's just a general lack of understanding on the benefits of space for life on Earth and for humanity. And I think, the face of space is really, obviously not because people do, people have more in-depth knowledge, but I think for the general public, it's Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos.
Right.
And people think it's, why do we want to go? Why do we want to live on Mars? And I think people think that is the end goal of what we're doing here. And I don't think they realize, that it's the environmental monitoring, it's to do with climate change, it's how we're monitoring the oceans, it's farming, it's agriculture, it's how satellites, they're getting you home when you use Uber, when you're playing Pokemon Go, that space. So I think, really trying to kind of create more of an understanding of that, but completely, again, what you're saying in the kind of messaging, because you're so right. I could so picture it there, what you were saying, a young boy and a young girl, the little boy, you can picture someone saying, oh, you're going to be a rocket scientist, you're going to be an astronaut. But to the girl, I'm picturing, you're going to be a princess, you're going to be as you said, how many children do you want to have? And it is that messaging that is skewed, that I think is this, it's what young girls, I think it's age 13 is when statistically they start to lose interest in STEM. I think a huge kind of barrier to that is representation, because, you kind of, unfortunately, people feel they have to see it to be it. And if you can't kind of visualize yourself rising through the ranks, then why would you spend your time on something that might kind of be not beneficial to you, and you might never end up succeeding? So that's kind of why, I love speaking kind of female leaders in the sector who are really passionate to kind of promote the representation, also to kind of promote transparency. And I really love to kind of speak to the guests about their journey and kind of what they've learned. And this brings me on to something that we ask every guest, is we touch on kind of failures and achievements in the interest of being completely transparent and showing people, it's not always plain sailing, but there is worth it for you to put the effort in. So, because with people with social media and with the internet, people really promote the end product and their success, but I don't think enough is said for the journey that gets people to there, because I think when you just focus on that end result, it can seem a bit unattainable. So kind of in your kind of unique journey that you've had so far, what would you say your biggest failure / learning curve was? And then obviously what you did learn from that. And then on a more positive note, what's your biggest career achievement to date?
Yeah. Yeah, so I debated on whether or not I actually wanted to be this transparent and share this, but I decided to go ahead and do it. Mainly because like you said, I think it's really important. I'm hoping that this will encourage someone out there. So as far as failures and I think failures in general too, I think we frame that a little bit incorrectly. When we say failure, it makes us feel like the whole experience was bad, right? And usually
Mm.
when we say failure, we're talking about, oh well, it didn't turn out the way I wanted or it ended bad. So we can have an experience and learn so much and grow from it and have a lot of wins along the way, and then it just end a certain way. And so that doesn't mean the whole experience is pass fail. But saying that, so career wise, I think what sticks out most to me and one of my biggest, what I consider failures, is I was actually fired from a job, and I can only, like, now having time and distance, I'm only able to speak about it, now, having some space away from that. But yeah, like I just thought that that was going to be a death sentence for my career. No one was going to want to hire me, and they're going to ask why I was fired and all of these different things. And it did take some time mentally to recover from that, to evaluate the situation, to say, what went on here, to take what takeaways I could from that I knew, okay, there's something in this that I need to learn and grow from. What can I focus on that I know I can do better at this in the future? And then there were other parts that I just had to let go and honestly just say, that actually isn't helpful and is not worth taking in, and I can't let it affect me, and become a way that I view myself. So, and honestly, again, one reason I share this is because I saw a prominent figure on LinkedIn share her story about being fired, and it just made me feel so seen and realize that it's not uncommon. This happens all the time, and it shouldn't be a setback even. It is what it is. It's a growing and learning experience. And I had to move on from it and press on. And it hasn't impacted, it didn't stop my career. It didn't, halt anything. It was a point in a moment where me and that company no longer aligned, and that was fine. And yeah, so I just want to encourage anyone out there that to have a significant setback, whether that be, terminated from a position or whatever else it may be, that doesn't shouldn't define, your career. And there's just so much more out there. There's so much opportunity, and how you handle that will say more about your career and its trajectory than the actual occurrence. And then as far as achievement goes, I I don't know that I would point to any one particular achievement. I have succeeded in just about every role, whatever success looked like for the individual role. Um, so yeah, so I've had successes all along the way. I think rather than a specific moment to point to, I am just really proud of my determination in general and how I have had to pivot and change course so many times, how I've been able to do that, how I've been flexible, been able to adapt. And again, this brought me here, now to a position in the space industry. And I want to stay in space. I know now, whereas before I was in survival mode a little bit, just trying to do what I needed to do to make it. Now I've found something that I really truly love, that resonates with me, and that I want to continue pursuing. So yeah, so and kind of in that mindset, I would say that my greatest career achievement probably is yet to come. And so I can't even imagine what that will look like when it does happen. Then in that case, it's going to be pretty amazing.
So positive. I really love that, and I love kind of your biggest success. I love that the best is yet to come. You don't, I love that, and I love kind of you kind of attributing your determination to your, your greatest success, because that is such an asset to yourself as a person. And, the way you kind of take on your professional and your personal life, which all attributes to your end success. And I really appreciate you sharing your learning curve story about being fired, because I think that's so key to kind of be vulnerable in that way. Because as you said, it happens to so many people. Oftentimes, it's through no fault of their own. I have quite a few friends recently who have lost their job, absolutely because of differences with the company, or because the company wasn't doing so well. And I think it's so easy to label that as rejection, and I've failed, and I'm ashamed, and this is a failure of mine. But it's an opportunity to grow, and it's, if it's not, I think it's really important to just kind of take things as they come. And I just, try and think, okay, so this isn't for me. There's something next for me. And if you're not aligning with the company, that's detrimental to both parties. Don't stay at a company for the sake of having a job. You wouldn't
Mhm.
stay through absolute thick and thin if it wasn't benefiting you in any way. So I don't think it is a complete loss at all. And look at where you are now. And if you
Mhm.
had, you could still be working in that job, and you could still not be aligned with it, but you could still be doing it because the paycheck came every month, and it's where you go 9 to 5, and that's kind of your routine. But sometimes leaving a job for whatever reason, if it was of your own accord or not of your own accord, that is absolutely room for growth and making space in your life for something incredible to happen. So I think, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. I think a lot of people listening will kind of be breathing a sigh of relief. And as you said, feeling heard. Because I've seen a lot of these big people, these big figures and CEOs on LinkedIn sharing these stories. And when they get, when they're transparent and vulnerable, it's so incredible. And you see the reaction from their networks of people saying, I have been so ashamed something like this happened to me, and I've been keeping it to myself. And it's just really important, I think, to kind of, as I said, to kind of be transparent and share these stories and let people know that you're not alone, and it's absolutely not the end of the world, and the best is yet to come, which I think
Mhm.
I really loved your answer for that. Very positive mindset. I really appreciate that. So, kind of in the same arm of kind of, giving pieces of tangible advice and talking about, making your way through your career journey. This is my penultimate question. Well, it's a two-parter. So this is my final question for you. Um, we like to round off to give, some pieces of advice, something for people to go away and act on and really think about. So in the years that you've kind of been pursuing your career, specifically when you've been transitioning into space, what what has been the most useful kind of resource that you've utilized, if that was a program or a course, or oftentimes I find this is a mentor or a person people have worked with along the way. And then just to finish off, what advice would you give to someone who is either from a technical or, very importantly, a non-technical background, who is looking to enter into the space sector?
hmm Yeah, sure. So I think being a self learner is huge, and that's something that I've always kind of done in wherever I've been. But specifically with space, obviously coming in with very little to no knowledge, I just tried to. I followed space news, the CNBC space report, and any type of industry news that I could find, spitter the space Twitter community that's out there, and just kind of following that and picking up on bits and pieces of information. Obviously, like I learned a ton at my company working here, and just asking questions as well. I my boss is an engineer as well, right? So he is all too happy to talk about, in anything technical. If you ask him, he'll talk all day technical things with you. So even just taking time to be like, well, what is that? What does that mean? What does that do? Not being afraid to ask those questions and being curious. So yeah, so just really trying to access as much content as I can. EVONA has been really great at that as well. This is why I'm a little bit of an
Thank you.
EVONA fangirl, and I follow you guys so much because the material, the content that you put out is amazing. And I think, going back to the issue with the public and messaging around space and the purpose of space, the only way to combat that is education, right? So it's vital that we put that material and that information out there. And then also being an HR department of one, you guys give so many good resources for prepping people on interviews, which is really important, and just all kinds of stuff. So that's why I follow you guys so much and get a lot of my content from there as well. And then I for others, to get into the industry, I would say the same thing, look out industry news, always just see what's going on, find the major players, stalk your favorite space companies, follow them on social media, check out what's going on with them and their press releases and updates. And if you're looking to get into the industry, especially if you are coming from outside the industry, you need to be intentional about how you engage the industry, right? So this means it's really important that you follow space companies. If you're interviewing with a space company, I would think bottom line, you'd want to be following that company at the least, because that matters. That shows interest. If I'm looking at someone's LinkedIn profile and I see that they follow us, that's just a little bit more encouragement that they actually are interested, right? And it isn't just a job that they're trying to fill. So following companies, and then you need to know a little bit, do your research, right? So you can tell, and I always ask whenever I'm interviewing people, I always ask, well, how did you find us and what do you know about us? And it's okay if you just found us on LinkedIn and saw the job and then thought it was a cool, that's fine. But if you give me a one-liner off of the website and that's the bulk of what you can tell me about the company, then yeah, like I'm gonna, wonder like, how interested are you in us or in working in the space sector in general? And especially if you're not that's familiar with the industry, like, do your research, look into these things and make sure that you've done all the work that you can. I recommend, someone to help you, a career coach with those things. So just be a learner and be curious and find out all you can on your own. When you hit that limit, go find someone else and start asking questions. Because I guarantee you, most of the space geeks in the industry will want to tell you more about it. They live for it, So just get curious and ask questions.
Completely. That is such a good piece of advice, I think, for your kind of like closing comments. And I think that is so key, such a key message is you don't have to be an expert in the subject matter. You just have to be passionate and determined and show a keen interest. Because I've interviewed people and I said, oh, what do you know about us? And I've had people not even lie. And I thought you could have at least tried to lie to me. And they said nothing. I said, oh, did you not look at the website? No. Okay, see you later. It really shows if you don't have that passion, and especially when it's space, as you said, how passionate everyone is. It's just going to show if you're not. It's going to show if you're not truly passionate. It's going to equally, if not 1,000 times more, it's going to shine through if you genuinely have a passion. That was me in my interview at EVONA. I went, by the way, I don't have any science, technology, anything really in my background, but I love space. I love what you do. I love X, Y, and Z thing that you did. And I was reading about this, and they said, that's all we could ever really ask from you. And I really love the phrase, engage intentionally. I think that's really, really important to be a self-learner, ask questions, and engage intentionally, and keep in mind the end goal and kind of follow your passions. And like you said, absorb as much as you can from the people in the industry because they want to share that with you. And also, thank you so much for those lovely words about EVONA and the content that we put out there. Thank you. That's really sweet. We pour our heart and soul into them. We truly believe in what we're talking about. And, this is when we know that we're doing it right, really, isn't it? When people come back and they say, I read what you said about diversity and inclusion, and I read what you were writing about what's going on in the space sector. And that's really is, especially as the content creator, it's contributed to by the whole of the marketing team. But, that is, when I interviewed for the job, it was, we want to get the message out there. We want to get people inspired about what's going on in space, but also we want to, be thought leaders in space industry recruitment specifically, and what more we can be doing to kind of nurture the industry and the people within it, which are really, the industry can only really be a reflection of who is in it. So that's really what we're trying to do here and promote the message. So I really appreciate that. And Heather, I really appreciate you taking your time to speak with me. I really enjoyed speaking with another accidental space cadet. It's been really great. And I've just really enjoyed talking with you about this and kind of, about getting your thoughts and on kind of your journey and what you've learned and the advice you have for people. I think that's really good advice for anyone listening to, go away, follow anyone that you're interested in. And you never know, they might remember you. If you connect with someone on LinkedIn at a big company, your name might stick in their mind one day, and maybe one day you'll be sat across from them at a table and you'll think, oh,
Mhm.
and when I connected with you on LinkedIn after I listened to that EVONA Origin Stories episode.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. And again, for the work that you all do, you really are on the front lines of that work. And I appreciate your advocacy for diversity, especially all of the work that you all do is amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And we absolutely feel the same way about you. So glad that we were kind of able to connect in this way and properly meet and have a chat. And yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again, Heather, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.